and welcome to the Smackdown Preview podcast. I'm Adam Wilborn from WhatCulture, joined by the Dadley Boyz of WhatCulture, Michael Hamflett and Michael Sidgwick, to look ahead to tonight's episode of Smackdown on Fox. But before we get into it, if you're a fan of this sort of thing, make sure you subscribe to WhatCulture Wrestling on either iTunes, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts from, for daily wrestling podcasts where we not only review Smackdown and Raw, but also the Wednesday night war between AEW and NXT. Pay-per-views, we have interviews, roundtable discussions, and a roundup of the week, complete with a bloody good quiz, of course, on WrestleCulture. But as I said, joined by Michael Hamflett, Michael Sidgwick. New year, same old SmackDown, let's be honest. How are you feeling about tonight's show? Do you see, because we spoke a lot at the end of last year about how WWE needed to improve in 2020. And I'll be honest, I didn't watch any wrestling over Christmas, and I sort of dipped my toe back into SmackDown before we came in here. And I didn't really miss anything. I'm
feeling terrible about tonight's show. You were both off last week, and I had to sit in your chair. You didn't watch any wrestling, so you didn't need to watch this video previewing this very episode. And I appropriated Adam Cleary's catchphrase that he used on a Thursday, because hashtag on Fridays, we feel blue. This is just garbage wrestling. This is the worst WWE, I think, has ever been on a weekly basis. Worse than Monday Night Raw in its summer pit last year, because, and I have to go back to this once a week, $1 billion. $1 billion of pro wrestling every week, and this is what we're getting served. Not to sort of like ruin the preview from the off, but there's no storylines that are exciting. There are no angles that are fresh or new. We're heading into the Royal Rumble. We're about to hop on the road to WrestleMania, and I can't see this brand in particular being salvaged even then, even at the time of year when wrestling is theoretically the most exciting. I think at the moment, these characters are so derailed just by being on this brand that I don't know how you get them up at such a key time of year. I don't get it.
It's January, and there is literally nothing bubbling on the horizon for WrestleMania that I'm remotely excited about. I think consensus has it that The Fiend is going to defend the Universal title against Roman Reigns. I'm just thinking how many spears, how many ridiculously farcical spears is it going to take for him to win that match? There's just nothing on the horizon for WrestleMania. It's so weird because usually, traditionally, they would build something, it's Survivor Series, even if it's just like a IRL match graphic and a backstage segment, you're thinking, oh, that's the direction. I'm really excited about that.
It's all seed planting, isn't it, normally?
They've done it now. They've done like now, so it's hard for me to get excited. I will be excited about SmackDown going forward if they tease something that looks like it could be incredible at WrestleMania on tonight's show, but it feels like every development's been going on forever, even if it hasn't been.
Did you reckon SmackDown will improve this year? It kind of has to because of that TV deal, no?
I'd love to be proven wrong with all this early year cynicism. I think they're going to get away with it on the road to WrestleMania if it's Roman's title push, because they seem to have got through the worst of him being booed now, and I think we all want to see Roman defeat The Fiend, not because we care about the confines of kayfabe, just because he'd be a better world champion. Sorry again to those Fiend stands that continue to pollute our Twitter mentions.
It's me. I still like The Fiend.
Change your avatar like the rest of them then. Like the belt needs taken off him because that character needs a chance to actually breathe again, and I think this title is strangling him, and not just because Bray's putting on the pounds again like I am, and that belt's looking a little tight around the waist. Like, it's no good on that character because it puts him in these situations that like threaten to just derail him, just like they did against Seth Rollins, just like they probably will when Roman Reigns puts 10 spears through him. You know, Daniel Bryan gives him his best match, and then he can't replicate that against The Miz because this character doesn't really allow for that. And I think, you know, if Fox want to get the most out of this character, he shouldn't actually be at the top of the card because that's the cursed position in this company.
Another person that is hinted at a potential reinvention this year is Cesaro. We saw today he's tweeted out a new logo, said back to basic. Do you see any change for him? Because my concern, when myself and Andy were talking about this in the news, is it's going to be the same old, same old. Arguably, he's in a great position right now. He's alongside Shinsuke Nakamura. He's got a mouthpiece in Sami Zayn, which often people criticise that's the one thing missing from his, repertoire. I described him as a sort of modern-day X-Pac in terms of the fact that if you can't have a good match with him, Mansoor was given Cesaro because they knew how good a match he was. Do you see any sort of recognition from WWE this year if they get a new Cesaro sort of character?
I'm really not convinced, and I'm not being a dick. I've just had several years of precedent to support that cynicism. What was the new logo? What he described himself as? Pro wrestling purist. that character will never get over in WWE, not least of which because Vince McMahon would not want that character to get over in WWE. It's a neat thing that I guess sort of accentuates his strengths as a performer, but the problem with Cesaro, and it's been this case for years, is that he's in the wrong company. Like, he's in the wrong company. If I'm putting, my optimistic lens on, then realistically, I do think there's a certain bit of potential in this alignment with Zayn and Nakamura, potentially in the tag team division, at which Cesaro's always excelled, and potentially they could, especially with Revival on that brand, revert back to the days of 2017, in which they actually had a totally banging tag team division. That's where Cesaro is best served in WWE. I'm not saying he doesn't have potential to star as a singles elsewhere, but the best he can hope for, and the best we can hope for as fans, is a 2017 adjacent run where the tag team division is the best in all of wrestling almost, without being NXT.
I saw that Pro Wrestling Purist thing, and it put me in mind of a story Jim Ross told on one of his Conrad podcasts about the hills that Paul Heyman would die on. Apparently he sat there in his office one day, Paul Heyman blows into JR's office, furious with yet another row with Vince McMahon over creative. And Jim Ross is saying, what's the problem? And he starts the sentence saying, right, well, I was trying to push Little Guido. And Jim Ross is like, whoa, stop there. That's a hill you can't die on, trying to get Little Guido over as a top guy. Great, workhorse, will do anything for anybody, but not at the top of Vince McMahon's wrestling card. And Cesaro finds himself in the situation to the tune of a decade's worth of internet forums and people like us saying, why don't you push Cesaro? There's a reason why we made that an internal meme, because the poor guy will never get this break. I would love to see that tag team reinvention yet again from him.
In 2 minutes, Cesaro's being compared from 1, 2, 3 Kid to Little Guido, and if you think the push is going to last any longer than that on television, then I don't know what to tell you.
From Cesaro to Sheamus, because there's been lots of teasers for him returning, of course, and arguably he could be that injection of excitement that we need on Friday Night SmackDown. Could he come back tonight, do you think?
I'd love it if he did. Ever since those first videos started airing, there's been an element of catharsis about this Sheamus return. He reminds me of Bob Holly wanting to slap the heads off these kids that he doesn't understand. He is so critical of it. Again, there's an element of our truth writing in this. He's critical of this product in a way that he probably shouldn't be. He's suggesting, you got guys like Shorty G and Fiends. Well, don't put the Universal Champion in the same category as the guy who dressed up as a basketballer and mocked for being short. But what he's suggesting there is this whole product, this whole show is full of idiots and clowns and fools, and Sheamus is just quite a hard wrestler, just an angry bastard that's going to go and kick people's heads off. This show could really do with one of them, because Roman Reigns is the babyface one, is busy having dog food smushed in his mush. So, I'm all for it.
And arguably you could bring him back and have him elevate him to be Roman's next opponent following a WrestleMania win, perhaps.
That seems quite clever. In contrast to his old tag team partner, Sheamus has got the verbal chops to operate in the sports entertainment world. It's an actual mandatory minimum requirement. You have to be able to talk, and if you can't talk, you can't star on anything beyond a temporary basis. I am excited about Sheamus's return, because any area away from WWE's hard camera is where you get over. And then as soon as you're in front of it, you don't get any more over than you'll ever be. It's this bizarre paradox that illustrates to me what a useless wrestling promotion WWE actually is. Sheamus is someone who I think is very talented, really authentic. I like watching very much the best of Sheamus, but when he's treading water in the churn of it all, it's difficult to get excited about it, but that isn't really a problem exclusive to Sheamus. But having said all that, he's been away for a very long time. Therefore, I'm excited about him again, and I'd love specifically to see him programmed with Shorty G. I just think that dynamic would be so perfect. You've got the whip-smart, technical guy he's essentially a tree surgeon, and a brilliant one at that. Sheamus is incredibly, incredibly hard as a bloke. He's a total bruiser of a performer. And I think if you give them enough time and enough TV attention, you could have a far better dynamic and program than even that electric Shorty G versus Baron Corbin feud before it went all a bit tits up.
The thing is with Sheamus that I like, I'm a huge fan of his, but also it's a double whammy, isn't it? It's
gingers.
Yes, indeed. It's a double whammy of not only has he been away, but also we've been teased that he may never return. There was all that talk about it last year, of course. So the fans will appreciate it arguably even more. And I just think he could be that real injection.
That's a really good point, actually. Yeah, there's one of the problems with obviously WWE's constant over delivery of content is that you get angrily bored with so many wrestlers, and it is nice when an affection grows, and Sheamus is a perfect example of that. Even the bar, like, I love the bar, but there's only so much they could have ran through before you were thinking that they've got nothing else left to do. The bar become the ball, and then you just sort of given no creative reason to even exist. So sure enough, they split them up, and Cesaro's floundered a little bit.
How did the Usos never say that on WWE TV?
What, the bar become the ball?
Yeah.
They were busy getting...
You're in the wrong job, mate.
They were busy getting the other best tag team to drag their asses across the ring. It's nice. You know, that absence does make the heart grow fonder, but in WWE, it's one of the only ways that you grow fond for these talents. So I think you're right there. I think there's an affection that people maybe didn't realise they had for Sheamus until it seemed as if it was all going to be taken away.
We mentioned Daniel Bryan and Bray Wyatt. I'm worried about bringing it up again, but what now for them? They're obviously going to be facing off at the Royal Rumble, and that, as you said, is inevitably going to be a fantastic match. But how do we bridge that gap, so to speak?
I don't know. I mean, it's... Right. What happened on last week's SmackDown? So disposable that I might have forgotten.
Daniel Bryan submitted The Miz in a triple threat match to be named the number one contender.
Just the less soap opera stuff, the better. He's already gone after The Miz's family. The Miz cares more about the hard camera than his family, so there was no dramatic gravity or heft to that whatsoever. So hopefully they don't go down a personal grudge feud route, because the idea of The Fiend in the context of other characters who can feasibly exist in real life, interfering in that interior life, just looks so absurd to me. Like, how did he get in The Miz's house? It's just, I can't believe it. In the whole principle of pro wrestling is it's something you're meant to suspend your disbelief over. So just try.
Just a lot of research watching Miz and Mrs. It's not difficult. We can work out where he lives. Trust me.
All right.
Little Adam Wilborn in the cot.
Is it Maryse or The Miz you want to realistically, I've reached a point now with The Fiend, and I guess this maybe speaks to his success, that he completely polarizes people. If you can't have a nice word to say about The Fiend, if you want to escape any kind of toxic abuse on Twitter, you're best off not saying anything at all. Yeah. So there's a strong feeling that this character is working that I'm completely in not agreement with. So I don't know how to bridge that gap. I don't know how you can tell an effective story with The Fiend that can unify the audience, which, considering that audience has been divided for several years at this point, I don't think you can do anything with him. My one bit of solace that I can glean from this is WWE is often so bad that if they just make it slightly less bad, it'll become a masterstroke through the curve of relativity. My only bit of optimism surrounding this entire program and the resulting match is that they get rid of the red light at the Rumble, and then suddenly it's like, oh God, this is great. It's not rubbish anymore.
It's a blue light.
I can actually watch it. Oh, this must make it good. Whack an extra 2 stars on this. That's the only thing that can save this. Get rid of that bloody red light.
It's funny you mention about the fans being unified, because the Yes movement's over and Daniel Bryan is facing Bray Wyatt on a Royal Rumble undercard. What can possibly go wrong with that scenario? What have we seen that has been disastrous for this organisation at this time of year before, when they need Roman Reigns to look really strong in a Royal Rumble? What can go wrong with any of this? So yeah, they should probably put the Royal Rumble on before that title match on the pay-per-view itself. Otherwise, people will be clamouring for losing title contender Daniel Bryan to go and win the whole thing and then boo Rey Mysterio all over again. Stem cells be damned. This match is going to be great. Bray's going to look better as a result of it. And Michael Sidgwick glumly predicted to me over the desks earlier on where Daniel Bryan goes next after this.
Yeah, 2 things. One, I did have one idea that just came to me just then. The Fiend is all about, or the Mr. Rogers Bray Wyatt character is all about mining the past and channeling the past to reinvent himself. It would be nice to see him acknowledge the history that Daniel Bryan has with the organisation, because I think he can make really good comedy out of the run that Daniel Bryan's had. I think he can do something in the Firefly Funhouse that is thematically somehow linked to what The Fiend does. But if you look at the trajectory of the card and where we're going, the top babyface and the top heel, respectively, are Roman Reigns and Bray Wyatt, The Fiend, which is where they're going at WrestleMania. Who's number 2 and 2 underneath those number 1s on the face and heel side? King Corbin and Daniel Bryan. That's your upper mid-card match for WrestleMania 36.
I've just got another prediction, since while we're batting them back and forth. Firefly Funhouse, there's a little goat puppet, and all the puppets in the Funhouse are pushing the goat. And then the Vince McMahon character pops his head in, and Bray's like, push him, push him. I ain't pushing that, pal.
I like
There's
that.
your Firefly Funhouse. There you go.
I like
There
that.
you go.
Are you
That'd be very
listening?
good.
You are listening.
Speaking of monsters, Braun Strowman,
Isn't one anymore.
he was throwing some shapes on SmackDown over the Christmas break and could well be a future Intercontinental Champion. The right direction for him, any direction, I suppose, for him is good right now.
You know what? People have been up in arms about this, who presumably haven't been watching it for 2 years. It's the only direction that can really take this character.
22 years. It's all Vince ever does to his monsters when they've outlived their usefulness for him. Get the big men dancing.
Dead as a monster.
Yeah.
I've seen enough latter-day Brock Lesnar matches to know that they don't take him seriously in that role, and because of that, I can't take him seriously in that role. He's actually quite a gifted comedic talent, Braun Strowman.
The man can move.
He's got a certain comedic timing that, if anything, he probably shouldn't have let them know about. Like in the process of that monster push.
Went fine for the big show, didn't it?
God,
I was going to say, he should be very happy that boxing's over right now rather than sumo wrestling was back in the day.
He's the big straw. That's what he is now. Like, that's what he is. So, yeah, I don't mind him in this role at all. I thought, you know what? He's dancing like a twat. It's fine. It's what he does now. It's Bruce Pritchard. It's quintessentially Bruce Pritchard booking this. I can't never take him seriously as a monster. So if you can amuse me for 3 seconds on a Twitter gif, then I'm happy.
I remain intrigued by the physical chemistry and the makeup of the Braun Strowman Nakamura match. Something about the weird makeup of those two coming together with Zayn and Cesaro running around on the floor, trying to avoid Braun, who is running around on the floor, is to me enough to like fill 5 minutes on the Royal Rumble undercard. Like I will take that as a mid-card program that means nothing.
He could do his pose to like get away from like the big clothesline running thing. Yeah, whatever. Don't care. I don't care. I'm sorry.
That's how he could have won the Royal Rumble. He just does that 29 times. They all just fly over the top rope. Low bridge, low bridge, low bridge. Idiot Nakamura.
Right, let's talk.
He did win it.
Yeah, but don't do that.
Oh, yeah.
Let's saved his energy for WrestleMania and had a good match.
Let's
He's been
talk
really good at saving his energy for the last couple of years.
about yet another love triangle
Bang into this.
In WWE featuring Otis, Mandy Rose, and Dolph Ziggler. Your thoughts, Michael Hamflett?
Doesn't need to be a triangle, does it? It needs to be a love line between Mandy Rose and Otis. They're going to be pulled apart by Dolph Ziggler crushing Otis's mum's fruitcake, but Otis need only watch the show that he's on to deal with all of this, to just get us out like, Mandy, how could you crush her? I didn't. It was Dolph. You could have watched it. Watch what? We're not allowed to watch the universe that we're in, so like, it didn't happen. Hate that, like that obvious plot hole in an otherwise perfectly acceptable bit of SmackDown Bruce Pritchard undercard comedy. I don't mind daft WWE rubbish when it's kept out of the way of the things that matter, and Otis and Mandy's potential love like really doesn't matter. I don't mind that as a bit of a let me up story amidst the Baron Corbin, Roman Reigns stuff, and yet like Dolph Ziggler, it always sounds like we're bullying this. He doesn't half ruin everything, doesn't he? He takes everything you like and he makes it worse. Like Kofi Kingston's title reign, the colour pink, this storyline. Dolph Ziggler makes things worse.
He does.
Bumping the legacy of Billy Gunn, the lot. Like,
I get what they're trying to do. They're trying to create a bit of drama before we get that nice moment where they have a hug or something like that, and he gets friend-zoned. I don't think they're actually going to run with a romance angle. And if they do, it'll be quite funny, because there's something about Otis, when he's creeping on Alexa Bliss, it's problematic and bad, but there's a wholesome element to the Mandy Rose thing.
long term as well, isn't it? He's been working this one for quite a while.
He has,
like, the company put some graft into this.
It's just that big, stupid WWE strange bedfellows, literally in this case, visual that, you know, I don't have a heart of stone. Well, I almost do. But it's something I might enjoy. But yeah, Dolph Ziggler as the cocky sort of heel, I guess it kind of works. It's just, Otis looks like a tit. If there's anyone...
The leader of the football team, isn't he, basically, burying the sort of nerd?
I'm amazed Vince doesn't think he's a babyface then. Yeah, it's just... Like, Otis is above Dolph Ziggler, really. He's above all this. Dolph Ziggler's that low. Like, Dolph's the cake in this story, really. Like, Otis would be smushing him into the ground.
If there's any character in WWE canon right now who is not aware of the invisible camera and just can't go back and watch it, it's probably the guy who can't even articulate his thoughts.
That's why he hangs around with Tucker. Like,
maybe Tucker... What's Tucker doing here?
Maybe he's the real third man in this triangle. Maybe he's been seeing Mandy on the side all along.
Maybe he is the invisible cameraman and the invisible cock blocker in this scenario. Maybe Tucker is trying to cockblock Otis.
My prediction for tonight's episode.
It is because they always ruin a good act before it even has the chance to sort of bloom.
My prediction for tonight's episode, because WWE loves a bit of subtlety, is literally putting the best image of Dolph Ziggler up on the screen and the fattest version of Otis. To be like, look, he doesn't look like Dolph Ziggler does.
Look, we are literally ordering him to put his shirt up a little bit in a way that nobody else wears their shirt like this, just to tell you all, look, he's a fat slob compared to that goddess Mandy Rose.
Didn't he used to wear a singlet? Why are you keeping it all in, pal? Yeah.
Anyway, excited for that?
Yeah. I hate this show. I hate, I'll wear the Stamflet and the Titan crack quite well because I can't get a shot of this company, but I wish I could get a shot of this show. It's awful.
It's bad, but it's coherently bad, which is the worst thing about it. It's not the chaos of the wildcard rule. It's not these endless, 2 out of 3 false tags that just infuriate you, but add anything to the discourse. It's just this show that largely makes sense, away from the invisible camera stuff, because that never makes sense. And it's just formulaic Bruce Pritchard, Vince McMahon specialist stuff that I just don't feel is aligned to my tastes, nor the wider tastes of the audience that moved on from this about 15 years ago when it was in vogue.
I hate that, right at the start of the show, you hear AC/DC screeching, "Are you ready for a good time?" And I'm thinking, yes, so why am I sat in front of this show again? Every week it's there just to mock you for 5 seconds before you have 2 hours of an objectively bad time.
Well,
What's the show?
Your thoughts ahead of SmackDown.
Can I do some quick dog crack before we sign off,
yes.
as is customary? Is the dog stuff still going on? The dog food.
I got nothing left for it.
Is there...
Is there
an
dog food match is being bounced around, I've heard.
Is this for tonight?
No,
watch
no,
it? I'm not going to watch it.
You can take the lead if you want. I haven't got anything.
You need to put your terrible patter on a leash. That's what you need to do.
Well, let us know your thoughts ahead of...
It's of a very poor pedigree.
It's sort of tailed off this podcast, isn't it?
Let us know your thoughts ahead
We've
of
made him sick of us.
SmackDown.
He's the banter hound. He's literally the banter hound. He should be up for this.
How's this happened?
But at the same time, he's just euthanizing his enthusiasm for this whole thing.
Let us know your thoughts ahead of SmackDown tonight in the comment section below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And subscribe to What Culture Wrestling on either iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts from.
He's barking
for
mad.
Daily
Dog days are over, mate.
wrestling podcast. Plus, you can let us know your thoughts on Twitter at WhatCultureWW. Watch there. Follow all 3 of us. Follow Michael Hamflett at...
Michael Hamflett.
Follow Michael Sidgwick at...
At M. Sidgwick. I was going to do a jog thing.
M. Dodgwick. I thought...
Oh dear, you can follow me at Adam
I was going to
Wilborn.
say at Spaniel, but then I realised I'd actually like a few more followers.
Spaniel Bryan.
Oh, that's what we could do for the next couple of minutes.
No.
Dogs as wrestlers.
Let us know your dogs as wrestlers in the comments as well. You can follow me at Adam Wilborn. As I said, you can follow us all at What Culture WWE. My thanks to these 2 men who are both in the doghouse, Michael Hamflett and Michael Sidgwick. My thanks to you for watching.
He loves it, man.
And
He's had that coiled
will
back round
see
3.
you soon.